Welcome everyone to the launch of PWT Publishing Powerful Women Today's publication, Leadership Without Borders. And what does that mean? That means that to be a leader, anything goes. It's not about circumstances, it's not about titles, it's about action, and it's about conviction and vision and mission in actually putting, walking the talk. Right? Walking the talk. It can be a small act of leadership by giving your seat in the train to somebody that needs it. It could be a great act of leadership at saying no and defending someone else and stop being a bystander and become an active defender of a wrong that's occurring. So leadership is so many things, and that is one of the great things that I love about our publication. Our authors are top-notch professionals in different modalities and different disciplines. So we're seeing leadership through different lenses, right? And sometimes in places that we haven't really thought about, or in a way that we have not really thought about. My name is Carolina Billings, and I am the founder of Powerful Women Today and the publisher at PWT Publishing, rewriting history to include her story with allies such as our colleague and business brother Yusuf Scali and many others, because inclusion is not just gender-based. It is different of opinions, it is different experiences, perspectives, and all. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our current authors on the screen. We have in the order that they're appearing in front of me, and we're going to start hearing from them all. We've got Gina Marie coming from California, and Mindy McManus coming to us from Florida, Sally Wagner also from Florida, Dr. McGill coming from Orange County, California, Dr. Adams from Washington, Stacy Hall from Las Vegas, Shaban, I try to practice saying your name. Yesterday is Shivan, right? Coming from Alaska, and that's something really exciting we're looking forward to hear. We have Yusuf Scali coming to us from Ottawa, and we have Lori Smith joining us from Pennsylvania. We have Melanie Hirschhorn coming to us from Arizona, and we have see Ian Murphy coming from New York, and Joanna Benetu coming to us from Windsor. And we are located in Toronto, Ontario, but serving a global community. So I would like to introduce a lady that is a multiple times bestseller and who's been pivotal in helping us just rally up the troops, right, within the authors. And without further ado, I would like to introduce Stacy Hall.
Hello, Carolina, and hello, everyone. It is a thrill to be with you all here, and I wanted to participate in this particular book, despite the fact that I have published my own, this one, to be in the company of these amazing thought leaders and wisdompreneurs in the area of leadership. I don't think there's any book like it before ours, where you can have one resource and draw from any situation that you as a leader would encounter and be able to get immediate advice. And when you buy the book, what you also get is all of us in your pocket. So you're going to get our contact information, other tips and resources from each of us. And so one book gives you access to the growth of you as a leader throughout your leadership era. So I'm very, very honored, blessed to be in the company of these amazing thought leaders, wisdompreneurs, and to be able to say to you, we've come together to help each of you who's here be able to be the leader you choose to be.
Thank you. And I'm checking the chat right now, and we have, friends from Maryland, from Long Beach, California, from Morocco. How exciting is that? Washington, D.C., Michigan. We have from Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia. Stephanie Rooks, welcome. From Pittston, Pennsylvania, from Georgia, from South Carolina, DC, California, and I'm just Canada, from Toronto. Hello, Toronto, Guelph, Canada, Louisville, Kentucky, Vancouver, Toronto, Ottawa. How exciting is this? You see, this is how leadership comes together, right? Is such an exciting time to lead because there's never been a greater need and there's never been a better time to reach the globe. So we're going to start meeting the authors and really learning what their inspiration and what their call to action is, because that's at the end of the day, we all have brilliant ideas. I think there's more brilliant ideas than humans on earth, but it's taking them to action that matters, the most. That's the difference between success and future success. Hopefully, after reading our book and meeting our authors, you're going to get that itch to put it to action and to see your dreams come reality. So we're going to start with Gina. Gina, yes, you're on my upper left corner. So Gina, welcome. Welcome to our launch. And I know you have a great following in California. So please let us know what inspired you to write your chapter and the one thing that, is your burning desire to see change within your modality.
Well, for me, as soon as I heard the title, Leadership Without Borders, it's like, I must participate in this amazing anthology. And the reason being is I have been in direct sales for over a decade now, and especially here in Southern California, I lead a team of over 100 women in direct sales from all walks of life, different socioeconomic backgrounds, but also from different countries. I always refer to my team as the United Nations. I have a lot of people from Europe, from Asia. Interestingly enough, I have of course, yes, the Americans, as we call them here. But for me, this was so important because my passion with direct sales really began with seeing other women in financial scarcity, to be able to uplift them, support them, but also get them to the point where doesn't matter if they're introverts, extroverts, help them understand that sales, direct sales, is for everyone. Not everyone is for direct sales, but direct sales is for everyone. And what do I mean by that? Direct sales is actually, and Stacey can support me, because it's very simple. It's actually a very easy, way to do business, sales, and you need it for everything in life, in business. How many of you, it's an everyday occurrence. You're selling either yourself, you're selling your family, in where to eat. What restaurant for all of you to eat, that's sales. So we're all in it. And for me, that's the passion, not only with direct sales, but also being part of Powerful Women Today. Because to be part of this amazing group of powerful women, yes, it's support, but it's also accountability. I can tell you my 2022 has been hopefully a year that I don't repeat. I'm hoping I'm looking forward to the second half of 2022 because I do not want a repeat of the first one. But you know what? The first half was an amazing half as well. We wrote 2 books together as Powerful Women Today, our second anthology. And here is the thing. This is the power of networking together, of working stronger together. It's not just a support system, it's the accountability system. As busy and as all the challenges that I have faced, Carolina, Stacey, many of the women on this group have continued to keep me accountable, like Marianne through this book. Gina, don't forget, with the chapter, and we need to. This is part of this amazing group. And this is where my passion for leadership has really grown exponentially. And continues. I'm a student. I think we all agree that we may have doctors, PhDs, but we are continual students every day. And here is the place of learning. So make sure, I'm so happy that you've joined us here today. And don't forget, the work has to be done, because support, it's like a good bra, right? You can buy the most expensive bra, support, get it up, but if you have it in the drawer, it's not going to do much over here. Sorry, you say, but that's what it's all about. You still have to put in the work. So sales is easy, yes, but the work must be put in. And this is where we come in, support and accountability.
I love it. The walk away for me that I heard and love is that even getting your children to put away the shoes in the front hall is direct sales. Right? And it's something that if we mastered it, when we mastered it, life becomes just that much more smoother, right? For us and also the people that we are communicating with. So
It's
wonderful.
all about
Thank you.
conversation.
Thank you. Now, I would love to invite a lady who is, apart from being a top-notch academic, a leader in the heartbeat of America right now. Dr. Adams, your modality and your experience in even geographical location in Washington has given you a first row account of the importance of inclusion, diversity, tolerance, empathy. Please share with us what inspired you to take action.
Sure. Thank you, Carolina. And I appreciate the time. And I have to say to my family and friends that showed up, thank you so much for being here. One of the things that you'll read when you read the chapter, my chapter is intentional leadership. And I always talk about that. I'm a coach, executive coach. I do training and things of that nature. But I'm always talking about being very intentional, right? And looking at leadership from that lens. And my chapter actually starts off talking specifically about my parents who were leaders within their own right. My mom actually is on the line today, my 86-year-old mother, who's still very active. So hi, Mom, Louise Cage. Say hello to her. But, one of the things that I've learned from all of them, my parents growing up, and especially my mother who raised me and my brothers, is how important it is to really be focused on the people. And be very intentional in how you're leading people. And so what I do in my chapter is really sort of illuminate that and talk specifically of what I call the 5 P's of leadership: plan, predict, progress, perform, and polish. And as leaders, even when we're talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, we have to be very intentional. It's really nice, and I am, as Carolina alluded to, I'm the vice president of equity, culture, and talent. I also am a faculty member, and I teach, and a couple of my students that have graduated with their doctorates by now are on the line as well. But one of the things that I always try to emphasize is it's super important not only to talk about the theories and the models, they're fantastic, but be very intentional and practical in how you're approaching leadership. And so I love to talk about that because, one of the things we can get sort of in that spin of the wonderful theories that are out there, and they're so important, but how do I really, in layman's terms, do some of this work? And so my hope is that as you're reading that, you're getting and sort of thinking about that from that lens. At any given point in time, we can be impacted in some way from someone's leadership, from a positive perspective and from a not so positive perspective. And so one of the things that it's important for us to do is learn from those examples. I've learned from some great leaders in my life, and I've had some super ones, my mom being the very first one out of the womb, watching her and seeing what she's done in her lifetime. But then some of the great women and men that have led me have been very impactful in terms of what they've spoken into me. And then I've had some not so great leaders, right? But what I say is that's an opportunity to learn too. That's the challenge and the opportunity to learn from those not so great leaders and say, okay, I don't want to do that. That's what I'm not going to do when I get in that role. So hopefully this chapter will give you an opportunity to sort of illuminate that for yourself and sort of be very intentional in how you're approaching leadership with those that you lead, whether you are in a formal leadership role in your job, or whether you're leading an organization, whether you're a coach, whatever it is that you're leading as it relates to leadership, that you're focused in on that and learning from those examples. And so my hope is that as you're stepping into that or stepping into any sort of leadership role that you'll be zeroed and focused in on that. We are all different in many different ways, shapes, and forms. When we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, but the reality is we're all the same in terms of how we want to be led, how we want to be treated, and looking at that and saying, okay, through my lens, am I doing what I would want others to do to me? And perhaps not. And then the other side is, am I asking the right questions to make certain that I'm leading them the way they want to be led? Sometimes there's not a one size fit all, but certainly respect is one of those things that's a one size fit all. So you've got to be able to assess and evaluate. And we really dig little bit deeper into that in the chapter.
Absolutely. And there's something that it absolutely resonated in my head and heart, which is, as a little kid, right from the womb, you were observing your parents.
Yep.
And they were your first leaders, your first example of leadership.
Yep.
And there's a quote that says that the future war and peace begins in homes.
Absolutely.
Right? Because they're the future leaders, and they're learning war and peace at home. And that resonates. Is a perfect segue to both a colleague that's published several books with us, Mindy McManus, in 30 Days to Courage. She gives us a great example also from her mother, the leadership that she learned from her mother. And now she's able to expand it in the current Leadership Without Borders. So Mindy, welcome. Please, always such a, oh my God, such an incredible modality and industry. The healthcare services within the women leadership. If the last 3 years have not taught us how essential women are in careers that are dominated by women, then you know what? I don't know what else to say. So Mindy, please take us from here.
Thank you. So I was interested in writing a chapter in this book because I am an executive coach and do leadership development, much like Dr. Lynn Adams. And intentionality is something that I definitely talk about when it comes to leadership. But I wanted to write a chapter about leadership in healthcare and daring to lead in healthcare. And that's been something that I've been working on for the past 3 years, because my passion is to help develop and grow women and minorities and help them to be able to fast track to those senior leadership roles within their organizations. And so specifically, I've been working with, in my niche, is women physicians, because I believe the more women physicians we can get in the C-suite making decisions in healthcare, it'll change the face of healthcare. And so my part of the book, when it talks about leadership, is how we show up every day. And a lot of it is around that emotional intelligence and how we are able to manage our emotions. We can have the best skills, but if we can't manage our emotions, those skills go out the window. And so it's really focusing on, how do I manage myself first, lead myself first? So in the first book, 30 Days to Success, it was all about how to lead yourself. And the second one was courage to lead, and the courage that I had gotten from my mother and how we had given each other courage over the years. And this one's more academic, as far as like thinking about what are the steps that we really need to think about. We need to know how we show up to everybody else, because we all have blind spots. There's things that we may be doing that's causing issues that we don't know about. And so in the first book, I talk about asking for feedback and how important that is. But really, it's about learning how to manage our emotions so that we can lead ourselves, lead our family, and then lead our organizations and lead our teams, and ensuring that we have that heart for other people. Because if you're in leadership for the money, you shouldn't be in leadership. You should be in leadership because you truly care. And it's about serving others. It's about serving servant leadership. And I just hope that, women read that and minorities read it. And if you're in healthcare, take the steps to become a leader, because you can definitely do that. And we need more really good leaders in healthcare, especially with the diverse thought. And so I would love to see and hear how people are able to take that chapter and hopefully feel that they're bold enough and courageous enough to try out leadership within their own organizations.
and continue the conversation. One trend that I saw as a producer of our anthology, that when you first begin to vet the authors, because we receive a lot of applications for our anthologies, and you begin to kind of put together the team, right? The story that is cohesive among all of the pitches. And one point that I found really interesting was that, although the topic reads Leadership Without Borders, it almost sounds like, okay, this is how you lead others. Yet, most of the chapters really began with leading self, right? And that's the shift. And I believe that's the shift, fundamental shift between female leadership and the historical leadership that where we find ourselves, is that when people think leadership is how am I going to lead others, right? Opposite to leadership, how am I going to be the best leader to inspire others to lead? And that's one of the fundamental shifts that I see in our book, right? In initiating that shift in conversation. So I would like to invite Rosanna Lamanna, who is a first-time author within our PwC Publishing. Her and I have been colleagues for, goodness, at least 5 years. Brilliant CPA partner at one of the largest accounting firms in Toronto. And she wrote a very special chapter. And I believe as we begin to connect all the stories, because all the stories are connected, let's go back to where we started, which is what Rosanna writes about. Go ahead, Rosanna.
Thank you, Caroline. And I'm so excited to be publishing alongside all of you guys. I'm truly humbled. So thank you for this opportunity and including me in this special book. Yes, very much. I've been listening to everything you've said, and I feel like, although we all wrote a separate chapter in this book, we all are linked by a common thread, be it a role model we have, our role as moms or our moms and how they've led us. And my chapter actually looks at it from the lens of my children and what my children have taught me about leadership. Although, I've, made my way to partnership, and I've had numerous amounts of training on leadership topics. We're taught about leadership and what it's supposed to look like. I actually learned a lot more from my 4 and 5-year-old children over the last 4 or 5 years than I've learned in all of my sort of academic training, just watching them grow, watching them develop, and realizing how, we go through all this training, we're taught about what we think the right thing to do as a leader is. But if we look at our inner 5-year-old self, you'll see that as we were growing up, we were willing to take chances. We were willing to fail. We were willing to learn. We weren't embarrassed or ashamed about making mistakes. We would, I look at my girls, they went skating for the first time this past winter, and they would fall in front of hundreds of people in the arena, and they would just sort of dust themselves off and get right back up. But where is it in our lives, in our careers, that we start thinking that we can't make mistakes or that we need to know everything, or we start sort of judging ourselves and being more critical, and I think sometimes that gets in the way. And so I feel that there's so much that I've learned from my children over the past few years that are so transferable to being a good leader, being a role model with our people, within our organizations, with our clients, whoever it is. People are watching. And, we don't need to know all the answers to everything. And we need to be able to take chances and wear that badge of bravery and recognize that, we can make mistakes, but that's how we learn. It's in those moments that we are learning, right? I go back to my kids. It's a teachable moment, right? Whenever things become tough or challenging, those are those teachable moments. And I think that's so transferable to anything we do within our careers, within our workplace, with our employees, with our clients, customers, whatever it is, in whatever situation, we have teachable moments. Let's take advantage of them. Don't be afraid about what other people think. I think we're all leaders from within. I think we had it since birth. I think we just sometimes take away some of the things that we learned along the way just because of what we think others think is the right thing to do, or how others perceive us, or how society perceives us. So I challenge all of you to sort of look back at your inner 5-year-old self, don't be afraid to take new challenges and embark on new opportunities and find new ways to inspire, encourage, and be a role model for others.
Brilliant, thank you. And this is the shift in our book. We write about the skill set pre-pandemic, the skill set post-pandemic, and how leadership as its core is shifting. Like you can almost hear the crack in the ice shield. Like a few years ago, Rosanna being, a top professional in the highest floor of the tallest tower downtown Toronto would not be in a safe, psychologically safe enough environment as a woman to use metaphors from motherhood to illustrate leadership. And now the world is ready. Now we're all nodding and we're going, yes, we all relate. Either we all have a 5-year-old or we've all been a 5-year-old, or some of us are still a 5-year-old. And, the shift cannot be ignored. And I think that if I were to pick a common thread between all the stories, is that all the chapters, is that it's not a warning call, but it's a call to consciousness. This is where we are now. Wake up, right? Wake up and get with the program, because this is what the world needs. So I am going to, within that thread of emotional intelligence and inner child and physicality, because there's something animals, and Eckhart Tolle speaks that when animals have confrontations, they have the physical or emotional confrontation, and then they shake it off, and then they move away and leave it behind, right? There's something to do with that physicality that plays a role in having the mindset, clearing the mindset. So I'd like to invite Dr. Lisa McGill, my dear friend and colleague, to speak about the role of mindset, emotional intelligence, and kinesthetics when it comes to being in the right frame of mind to lead. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Carolina, and it's been an honor and a pleasure to work with these wonderful, amazing women and men. So my chapter is on leadership lessons for enduring results, and what I really thought about when Carolina mentioned the title of the book and so forth is, wow, leadership. It's such a complex topic, yet it's so simple. And so as the ladies have been mentioning with emotional intelligence and so forth, what I like to think about EQ, and my dissertation was all on emotional intelligence, so it's a topic I'm really, really, really passionate about, is when you look at, let's say, command on that CPU, it has the capacity, that computer, to store information, to retrieve it, to process that information, and so forth. However, I look at EQ as our people skills. It's everything that makes us human. And EQ is like the software that you would download onto that computer so it can interact with everything else. There is also leadership software that we need to be able to be a good self-leader and lead others. However, there was an upgrade recently when COVID-19 hit, and that really made it necessary for businesses, whether it's a small business or an entrepreneur or a large business, for leadership to really redirect its efforts into how we inspire those on our team. And that's what I write about in my book is, my gosh, we can't get so stuck on our old business models. We used to do it that way, but now we have to shift. And how do you inspire people? How do you incorporate psychological safety principles to make them feel like you have their back, right? This is something that employees really need. They need to feel safe. They need to feel heard. They need to be encouraged. So I go a lot more in detail about that in my book, but it's just so important that we, as leaders, look for ways to do that. Have a vision, inspire others with a vision, shift that vision, do what we need to do to keep people together. So that software is all EQ related, and it's something that we need to pay attention to, and we need to be self-aware first and foremost. And I also, in the swag bag, I offered a one-on-one coaching session where I'm going to talk about and walk you through the Leadership Lessons Blueprint, because we all need to really assess ourselves on a continual basis so that we can not only keep ourselves inspired and motivated, but we can be that mentor, that guide. That's what we need to do as a leader, is guide and support others and really help them be all that they can be, reach their true potential. I mean, we've heard that term overused sometimes, but it's true. I mean, we can't walk away from that. We really need to focus on how do we take that and adjust with what's happening in the world around us today, adjust with what individuals go through on a daily basis, and still be productive and happy while we do it, building momentum and energy that equals endurance in life and business. That's it in a nutshell. You're muted. Carolina, you're muted.
To our chat, I know I'm on a mime it. To our chat is just chatting away. I see a couple of raised hands. We are going to just finish talking about the chapters and open it up to a Q&A. We thank all of our friends and family and colleagues and just general, thought leaders who have joined us today, who are downloading our book. And our goal is to break down barriers to entry by getting this knowledge, these solutions into the hands of as many people as possible. In talking about knowing thyself, I cannot tell you the amount of learning, because at Powerful Women Today, we're all peer mentors. In addition to being mentor experts to the world, we are peer mentors to each other. We're a working group. It's a long story. Visit the website, powerfulwomentoday.com. But one person that really has taught me the gift of self-reflection and of knowing self, and to really audit self and question my biases, my thought assumptions, in what to do with them, is Dr. Well, she's a lawyer, she's JD, Sally Wagner, who is in Florida, an NLP specialist and a success in her own right, who decided to pursue helping others because of she witnessed in building her empire. So please explain to us, how do we really recalibrate and reframe self?
And thank you so much, Carolina. And I'm so happy to be here with such a fabulous group of people participating in this book. The chapter that I wrote is called A Vision of the New Leader, an Inward Journey. Because, we talk about borders, and I really kind of pinged off that title. We've transcended all of the borders in the world, right? I mean, look at us. We're represented by people from all over the world on this event. So those physical geographical borders are no longer a hindrance to us. And yet we still have borders within our minds. And one of the things that I coach people on is, it's not what you don't know that holds you back. It's what you do know that's not true that holds you back. And when we put different people into positions of leadership without also re-envisioning what that position of leadership means, we really haven't accomplished what we want to accomplish, because we're still held back by those borders of things that we know that are not true. So the challenge is to go within. As Carolina was saying previously, that inward journey to really begin to understand what leadership is all about. And some of the factors we want to consider are, what are our sources of authority? Where do we look to? To whom do we look for our ultimate sense of authority as we make these leadership decisions? How socially aware are we as we look around at others and bring them into our sense of leadership? Where do we get our worldview? What is our worldview? How do we incorporate the perspective of others, and how do we honor the perspective of others as leaders? Are we demanding that they follow us because we're the leader and this is the perspective, or are we honoring of their perspective? How do we incorporate the importance of symbols. We have symbols in so many arenas of life, and that's an important part of leadership. And then finally, where do we look as we make moral judgments? Are we confined by the borders of geography, by the borders in our minds, or are we making decisions based on the sense of being for everyone and everything? Those are the things we want to look at as leaders. And the journey to that leader is an inward journey. And I do hope you will enjoy my chapter. I certainly enjoyed writing it.
What you do when no one's watching, right? That's true character. When nobody's watching, it's only you and your actions. And, it's such a shift in accountability. And we did touch a little bit on bias, and it's not what you know, is what you think you know. And being open to evidence that informs an alternate consideration. And I would like to welcome Simone Sloan to introduce us to her chapter. Simone and I are sisters from another world. Our passion for diversity, equity, and inclusion, I'm telling you, transcends, like there's not enough Zoom hours for us when we start going on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And what does it mean? And what does it mean as the representatives of the unrepresented, right? And that is leadership without borders. That is a tough, it's a tough role of responsibility. And nobody says it better than Simone. So darling, go ahead.
Thank you, Carolina. It's so lovely to see everyone, and thanks for being. I'm very excited to be here too, celebrating this. And really, the chapter that I talk about is how do we utilize trust to empower our teams, especially during these times. And I think that was kind of the motivation of when we sit through the land through which we are operating in the workplace, out the workplace, remotely, and what are kind of connections that we need. And so when thinking about, just the work that I'm doing with my clients and just what's happening with what I'm hearing as I'm talking to other folks across industries, is the connection pieces, right? How do we start connecting, and we start working in silos? And what I really found to realize is that it's a level of trust that we are not, that we're losing, right? And it's so foundational in terms of everything else. Transactionally, yes, we know that we'll get the work done, but we don't have that trust across within us, with others, then that's where it all kind of breaks down. And so I took the diversity, equity, inclusion piece and said, okay, it's really, how do we start building more trust within ourselves, but also across with each other? And what does that look like from a functioning organization and one that's not so functioned?
Muted, yes. And now I'm talking to myself. You are muted. And that is that sense of responsibility, in that sense of accountability. And when we speak of borders, there's the borders that we create ourselves, right? And some are meant in the spirit of allyship. Some are, meant, we're in this nebulous time. Especially as BIPOC, especially as underrepresented groups, where on one hand, we don't need anybody to speak for us. On the other hand, we need allies to move through, and get our message across. And we ourselves are also learning as much as those around us. And there is one group of underrepresented women who are the biggest conundrum there is, because they are the most powerful, the most accomplished, the most physically superwomen, English second language, that exist out there. And yet they encounter a huge barrier to entry, exiting the military world into the civilian world. And here's a superhuman that can teach all of us any given day about leadership and success. Yet they struggle to be understood, and they struggle to understand as they go through that transition. And that is leadership in itself, right? That making those mistakes, trying to learn that metamorphosis. So we have Chauvin, which I'm learning to say her name after almost a year, is on me, from Alaska, talking to us about the plight of the woman in the military.
Hello, thank you so much for that introduction. Being called a superwoman is a great start to my day over in Alaska. It's pretty early, so thank you. Did you know that there are almost 2 million women who served in the military in the US? That means 1 in 69 women that you know have likely served, and you may not know it. And this is why I have put the chapter in Leadership Without Borders, because I want to bring this community out so that we can all work together and help make this world a much better, inclusive place for everyone. So I've turned myself into a woman veteran empowerment coach since I've gotten out of the military. And mainly it is to get normal civilian humans to realize that women who served in the military may not walk around with the I served flag on their shirt, but have equal responsibility to this country and to contributing once they've gotten out of the service. And so this chapter really is a call to action for going beyond thanking us for our service and actually taking the time to take out those transferable skills that we have, that project management experience, so much leadership training that any veteran has. It's just an automatic part of how we learn to serve in the military, how we lead. And I noticed that of all the people who's come through my office as a therapist, the women who served in the military often don't want to express their service history because a lot of people just don't know, what do women do in the military? The reality is most people don't know what anyone does in the military except for what's on a movie screen or an interview. And women are the least represented of those stories. And so this is more of a call to action, a rally cry to take a time and just talk to women and just be aware that you may be talking to someone who has more experience than they let on. And that reason to get to know women who served in the military is so we can rebuild that community that is lost once we get out of the service. So thank you very much for this opportunity for me to share this message.
Absolutely. And some people think of it as self-promotion, but you know what? Yeah. It is, and it should be done. And I turn to Melanie, and Melanie and I, and by the way, it sounds like they're all my favorite children or they're all my favorite sister, but the truth is that we are. Like there's a special bond that is so different from one to the other, that goes to the inclusion, that goes to the incredible powerhouse community. So with Melanie, we both have a soft heart for self-promotion because you know what? That is one area where women, we need to get caught up. We need to get caught up on everything else that surrounds entrepreneurship, leadership, success, thought leadership, and being willing to stick your neck up with your opinion, because that's the beginning of leadership, as thought, as high impact, in public impact. So Melanie, the art of promotion. Please take it from here.
So thank you, Carolina. And, you know, it wasn't something that came easily to me talking about myself. And I'm never one of those people who's like, look what I did, I'm so special, because that's nauseating. But if you always go back to your mission and why you do things and you enroll people in your mission, then it's a lot easier to do this shameless self-plugs. So the chapter that I wrote is really about stepping into thought leadership and how being a thought leader is not something that you can just one day wake up and go, okay, today I'm a thought leader, everybody call me that. No, people have to really bestow that title upon you. And so how do you do that? Well, as an author, it's really about creating amazing content from your book, which is a gold mine, so that you can let people know all the things that you do and again, enroll them in your mission. So I am so excited to be part of this, because when Carolina said, okay, the book's about leadership, I was like, well, I'm not a leader. You know, I don't work in corporate. I don't have a team under me. I don't necessarily feel like a leader, but then I started thinking, well, what could I talk about? And thought leadership is definitely something that's, you know, around me and in my wheelhouse to discuss. What was really fun for me is because I'm a former journalist, I like to do research, and so I don't get to do a ton of research in what I do now, but writing the book was really fun because I got to pull up statistics and quotes. And so I even included stats, which is really fun for me. So again, I mean, each one of
content writing is a vehicle. Remember, the old medium is the message. Well, content writing is the conduit where all that leadership, how all that leadership is going to get to people. So Melanie and I lead PWT Publishing. She's one of our advisors within it. So yeah, you're going to be seeing and hearing a lot more from us as we continue to shamelessly plug our leadership book to the world, which is our message. And by the way, when you have a solution as a thought leader, be it career, and we're going to talk to Lori and Joanna about the career thought leader and how that is a symbiotic but separate identity from your employer, and we're going to talk about that. But what I want to say is that, you know, this is the reason content such as book writing or TED Talks or, you know, your LinkedIn content writing matters. It matters. You'd be shocked once you commit to consistently delivered leadership. And thought-provoking sometimes is not even about posting the answers, but posting the questions, right? Why, if you see an article, why is this stirring something in you? Right? That is thought leadership. So thank you, Melanie. So we turn to Lori and then Joanna to speak to us from the perspective of the career and the future. Now is a golden opportunity for people to be the stewards of their own career, as it's never been a more fertile soil for employment for those that are ready to do the work and to level up. So Lori and then Joanna, please.
Great. Yes. Thanks, Carolina. So we write what we know about, and I know about human resources. So I've been in human resources my entire career. So I wrote about corporate leadership from an HR perspective and developing the HR infrastructure. So, you know, often, you know, companies or leaders at a company, especially like a startup company, will try to handle everything themselves. They won't bring in, you know, other type of professionals to handle the situation. So, and that's no different with human resources. You know, like they can get to the point where they've reached 100 employees and all of a sudden they have all of these compliance requirements that they're not prepared for. And that, I mean, this has happened to me multiple times, and they bring me in, and yes, I can work on those compliance issues, you know, but we have all these other things that we need to work on. You really, you know, to be a leader, you value getting that help, and you value employees and their training needs and their development and the recognition and all of those other things that come with it. So that's what I wrote about, and not waiting until the last minute, not waiting till it's too late to bring in that help. I've set up the, I guess, like the tips and templates and, the guide that can just be followed in order to, if you are an HR professional, or, even, any kind of leader that can see what, how you would go about, helping a company establish that. So I talk about, the boundaries, setting up the boundaries, and just, how to handle all that chaos.
How to
Get
get
through it.
started.
Take a deep breath.
Yeah, and that is so important, because even after you process the concept of leading self, when you begin to lead others, those can be areas that you may find yourself not ready, or beyond your scope of innate talent or capability. And that's when you begin to hire those that are trained in leadership. So knowing when, and it's a very, I'm an HR executive as well. And when I was reading it, you brought me back to, what? I remember many times when that should have been done, that wasn't done. So great insight, great tips, and very, very logical and very organized. And Joanna brings us to the forefront of knowing what is currently on demand, and how someone has to realize now that you are the steward of your own career and your own leadership journey. And there's no better coach on that than our colleague, Joanna. Go ahead.
Thanks so much, Carolina. And it's great to see everybody. Thanks to all the co-authors, and I'm so excited to be here. I'm so excited for today. My chapter is called Leading Yourself to Lead Your Career, and it is all about your career. And I wrote this chapter, and I started my company, Coach for Careers, because I, years ago, found myself in that situation where I was very unhappy in my career. I was struggling to figure out what I wanted to do. I was able to get jobs, but I was miserable in these jobs. And really, what's the point of that? So that led me to the HR field, and then it led me more to career coaching, where really helping individuals to become leaders of their own career. And I feel what happens is many of us feel stuck in a career. We feel we have no choice, no chance. And that's where it is. And I know it's a bit of a cliche, but when we're unhappy on Sunday because we know we got to go work on Monday, that's really no way to live. So I really want to write my chapter for this book to really show that people can lead themselves. They don't have to just take what it is they have and settle. Who wants to settle? Life's too short. So in my chapter, I talk about mindset. First of all, what is your mindset if you're thinking of leaving your role? And from there, really getting clear on that next role, because so many people know they're unhappy, but they don't know what to do next. So work on that. And then I take them through how they present themselves, how they reach out to the right employers, how they stand out and really do get the edge amongst the competition. And it works really well. And I also, in my swag, I offer how to effectively brand yourself by making sure that your resume stands out and your LinkedIn profile stands out. And these are keys to leadership, but so much more as well.
Brilliant. So that's interesting point. So now we're shifting. We're still from reflecting as to, our inner self, to taking action, to leading others, which takes us to two key points. And you know what? This is like, I'm going to nerd up, and I love taking all of these segments and weaving a story out of it, right? It's like putting a play together. And then it comes the element of self-worth. And my dear friend, mentor, colleague, Ian, speaks of profit first. And in profit is many things. Profit is not just money. Profit is fulfillment. Profit is return on investment. Profit is happiness. Profit is abundance. To put it first in any endeavor you do, followed by Yusuf, our brother, our PWT brother, who speaks of mobility right? Go where the grass is greener, go where you can be of greater service and where it yields the most, and carve paths where paths are not yet existing. So Ian and Yusuf, please begin to wrap up our story that we're telling in Leadership Without Borders. Go ahead, Ian.
Okay, I was like, who's going first? My name's Ian Price Murphy. I'm the founder and co-owner of Moxie Bookkeeping and Coaching, which is based in New York. And it is always such a joy to be on these panels because we sort of, talk in other situations, but I feel like I don't always get the depth of what people have actually written about. And I'm so excited to read everybody else's chapter, just because, again, it's this one theme of leadership looked at from so many different angles, and every new perspective brings us a new way of understanding, even for things that quote unquote don't apply to us. So the approach that I took to leadership is I have really only ever worked for myself. I have been a business owner and before that a freelancer since the mid 90s. So the jobs that I had before Moxie were low wage, crappy jobs. So I really look at sort of my own journey and why those of us who either are or were solopreneurs cannot ourselves allow the luxury to believe that we aren't leaders. And so I heard Melanie sort of say that, well, I didn't feel like a leader at the time. And no matter how small your team is, even if it's just you need to, as you said, Carolina, know how to manage yourself, lead yourself. So I think it's important to talk about what the difference between management and leadership is, right? Management is kind of giving yourself or whoever the structure to go get things done, and leadership is inspiring them to go do that. I think it's really important to know that unless you never plan on growing beyond yourself, which means even if you know my business would be better served, and almost everyone's would, by getting a virtual assistant to help me, that is someone additional that you need to lead now. And one of the mistakes, because I love making mistakes, I love it when I make quick mistakes and learn from them, which I have not always been a fast mistake maker. Now I love to fail fast. One of the things that I did a lot early in my business growth was essentially hire carbon copies of myself. We got along great. Our communication was great because we all worked in the same way. And we were such a lopsided organization that we finally grew to a point where it was like, geez, we're really missing some perspectives in here.
Diversity.
Some diversity, right? We had diversity in some ways and clearly not in our personalities, right? We might have looked different, but we all thought the same.
Love it.
And so I, began to pursue some of these what makes us tick things, and have done a whole slew of different personality assessments, Myers-Briggs, Enneagram, DISC, which I love, and I know Powerful Women Today promotes, and the other one that I personally really love, which is the Kolbe. And I actually think the DISC and the Kolbe complement each other very, very well. Because what that lets you see clearly is, what is my preferred work style? How do I approach a problem when I'm not forced to do it someone else's way? Do I really lean into systems? Do I really lean into research? Do I just want to go and get it done? And once you know that about yourself, it is so much easier to take that knowledge and say, where am I? Which one of my legs is a little bit shorter, and how do I boost that up? So I can begin to surround myself by people, even if it's someone as simple as a virtual assistant, who can fill in those gaps for me and really keep me well-rounded.
And
again,
that's to be profit first.
I was just going to say, and so
I
this
know
is how it ties to profit first.
But it is.
Well, right. And there's two pieces of that ties to profit first. One is my fundamental belief that skills can be learned, right? I chose to learn it the hard way at the very expensive School of Hard Knocks. Didn't think to go get corporate training because I didn't really see any of that out there. And so much of that is there now. So this idea that whether it's the money stuff or the leadership stuff or the technical stuff, these are all things we can learn and absolutely should. And that Profit First is about making sure we can afford those things so that we can support ourselves and
Thank
support the
you.
causes that we love.
Yeah, and I'm going to ask for two things before we turn it over to the absolutely incredible Yusuf Scally. First, I want to ask for a show of hearts. Let's all do a show of hearts for all these incredible authors and for our incredible audience in our community that is willing to have an open heart and mind. Yes, and especially as we introduce Yusuf. Yusuf is somebody who is leadership incarnate, especially as it comes to shifting from toxic masculinity to a coaching style, allyship conversation. So we bring you who's going to wrap things up. Yusuf Scally, remember to download your free copy today. The links are throughout social media today. They're on the chat. We are going to stick around, a few of us, for Q&A. I see Elena's got your hand raised. I can't wait to hear your question. But Yusuf, show us about global leadership and global mobility.
Thank you very much, Carolina. And first of all, thank you to all friends and family who are here from all over the world. I see Lebanon, Morocco, France, and Spain. Merci beaucoup. Gracias a todos. And when Carolina talked to me about leadership without borders, the first thing when she said leadership, I was like, oh, another book about leadership. The moment she pronounced without borders, I said, when it comes to borders, I'm all in it. First, because myself, I crossed borders physically many times from one country to the other and lived in many countries. But it also, while crossing the borders physically, I was asking myself, am I crossing the mental borders and the emotional borders? So when it comes to leadership without borders, it just like from the title, I told Carolina, I'm all in, definitely. Why? Because for years, we have been projected an image of leaders that is associated with different superlatives, different labels, and we have been pictured leaders as superheroes. Well, I got news for you. Leaders are human beings before anything else. And despite their strength, despite the weaknesses they can have, they have vulnerability, they have emotions, they have feelings. And we do all have those emotions and feelings. And while living in different countries, the most common thing that was always bringing me back to the connection and to be an inspiring leader was the emotions and just showing up my authentic self. So my chapter came after I went a long journey of burnout and prolonged anxiety, where I had to navigate a world that was marked with labels, judgments, and stigma that made me even doubt about myself. So, of course, during the burnout, I was working for one of the best companies that I cherish a lot up to now. And still I applied all the band-aids. I applied all the wisdom advices surrounding stress management. And you know what? It worked for a few hours, few days in the best scenario. Why? Because most of the time it's symptoms orientated. It's about managing the symptoms rather than really asking ourselves as a leaders how we can really deal with it from the root cause. So Mandy, Sally, Dr. Adams mentioned self-leadership, and it's in the heart of everything. Ian talked about learning. Of course, and I love the quote of that we are all students. Yes, we are all students, and we continue learning every day. So for me, my chapter is a wake-up call, is a call to action, and it's coming from learned lessons. I want to share my own story so that others can really take it to reflect on their situation. And I took the best of my burning journey. Honestly, I am so happy that I had this wake-up call, because that's what brought me here today. And here I am collaborating with wonderful authors. The book I read most of the chapters so far, and it's just really inspiring. And what is really beautiful about it is, I know it was said before, but it's definitely the fact that we are looking and about leadership from different angles, from different perspectives. And the most important thing for me is that we are all leaders, and we have leaders within ourselves. As Carolina beautifully said, leaders are not born, they are made. Thank you.
Thank you. Well said. So today is a special day. We break down barriers to entry. Everybody can download our book for free. And the author said even continue the conversation with additional gifts and resources. We also have an upcoming follow-up anthology, 30 Days to Transformation. Stacy and I are going to be stewarding that. It's coming in the fall. And it also ties into our Happiness, Money, and Success Global Summit for the fall. For keynote speakers, there's a TEDx down the stream. And we are so thrilled to both Stacy and I have chapters in the book as well, and in a sign of true leadership, we're servant leaders, so we allowed the space, the psychological space for everyone to share their chapter with the world. You can look up our very own chapters in it as well. And I thank you everybody for such a fabulous day, and super cheer up however you want to salute. Today is an amazing day. So happy Canada Day, Independence, right? What a great time to launch this book. So we got Canada Day, Independence, honoring our Indigenous community, which I love that Canada has now begun to tie up Canada Day with our Indigenous history and evolution from Indigenous people to now. And of course, we have Independence Day, 4th of July on Monday. So for those that download the book, your swag is coming sometime during the weekend. And let's all connect. Visit powerfulwomentoday.com to find out how you can be part of this incredible community. And we welcome everyone, and have a safe and happy download, and have a safe and happy long weekend. Talk later. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.